the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting.
No, it's not.
That's listed on the top of the agenda, but we'll proceed anyway. It is the Public Works Committee, 1 o'clock here on March the 23rd.
Yep.
We got 3 items to discuss. Probably going to take some full time. Just a quick note before I turn it over. I was not able to attend the full meeting the last time we had, but in reviewing that meeting, it seems like we sort of bounce between topics here and there. So as much as we can stay on topic, on the agenda, we could get through this and get us all out of here in an appropriate period of time. So appreciate that, and we can get it done. So as you can see from the agenda, we need to talk about the resurfacing and what we have to do with DOT and the memorandum of understanding you all got a copy of. Then we'll look at the stormwater issue in Elmwood. And if at that time, Amy has something she'd like to present with us on the city's utility policy to look at getting a clearer direction regarding connection fees. So appreciate you taking the time to do it. So we'll go ahead and get started looking at the joint resurfacing initiative. Alan, you've had your hands full with that, so I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Appreciate everyone's time this afternoon. As I'm sure you are all familiar with, this has certainly been a long and winding road to try to get to the point of where we are prepared potentially to execute an agreement to get a number of our municipal streets here in the city paved in conjunction with the DOT and what they're planning to do here over the upcoming several months. I'm not going to do a lot of revisionist history. I think, we're all kind of in the same place in understanding that, the city has been spending a lot of time working with the Department of Transportation and a number of our consulting engineers trying to get to a point where all of the stars align for us to do as much, resurfacing work as we possibly can, which was the emphasis or emphasis for trying to join forces with the DOT and get the timing as such as to getting the most utility projects completed as possible so that when the resurfacing started, we wouldn't be going back in and cutting up and digging up and tearing up newly paved streets. So it's been a bit of an exercise in herding cats to get everything to the point that we're at, but we are at a point where we have been provided a municipal agreement by the Department of Transportation. Everybody has gotten a copy of that. I've been in contact with the Department of Transportation since that agreement was received and have requested a little additional language or another tenet, and we'll talk about that in a minute, in the agreement to kind of protect the city a little bit more as far as quality control, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. The agreement, you've all seen it. It basically is a very relatively simple page and a half agreement that the Department of Transportation wants the city to enter into. And, in the process of all of this, when you really start to understand what is going on, the city does not have that amount of money just sitting there waiting on us in a PAL bill fund to go in and execute this agreement and move forward, and we pay them all the money. We are bringing in essentially additional parties to assist us in financing this. And when we start talking about borrowing significant sums of money to enter into a project like this, then we bring in the local government commission who has to approve all of this. So that is really the emphasis for us meeting today and trying to get this Public Works Committee together to really explain what is going on and the steps that are needed and necessary in order for us to move forward if we're going to move forward. Staff met with the local government commission representatives. Amy, was that last week or week before? I can't even remember. It's just crazy. But they sent us and detailed and described for us a number of things that we needed to do in addition to just the simple agreement that the local government commission requires, and some of them are by law. And we've been working feverishly and diligently to get prepared to meet the LGC's timetable, which has essentially necessitated the special meeting that's been called for Monday. So the conversation today about what is going on is really to try to give the board or this committee as much information as we can to get you at a level, hopefully, where you are comfortable in moving forward in taking the action necessary next Monday to move forward in this project or this endeavor. So that's really where we are at this point in time. We have a municipal agreement from the Department of Transportation. We have been waiting on that municipal agreement for quite some time for the Department of Transportation. And the Department of Transportation sent it to us about 2.5 weeks ago and said, you know, get it back to us basically tomorrow. And that kind of caused a lot of ruffling of feathers, I guess, so to speak, because of the necessity to not only get the financing all lined up and do all of that, which is, you know, takes the approval of the board as well, but the local government commission review and approval. They have a board that they report to, and they have to meet and they have to do certain things. So we went back to the Department of Transportation and requested a little delay in what they were asking us to do, which was get this back to them so that they could basically let bids on April the 20th. They have agreed to delay this a little bit till May the 18th and give us the opportunity to really get all of our ducks in a row and meet all the timelines necessary. And the reason we are having to have the public hearing and then, you know, vote on everything like the day after we have a public hearing and do it by Zoom is to meet the LGC's requirements and get on the LGC's April agenda for their meeting, which is, I believe it's the same date as our regular meeting that we have with our board on April the 13th. So a lot of moving parts in all of this. And essentially what we are talking about is the agreement that we got back from the DOT. If you have seen it and you have looked at it, basically details the fact that they will allow us to piggyback onto their project. And to, somebody's pinging me. All right, who's on here? Cindy, if you or Alyssa could send the mayor her contact information to join us, please do so.
We already have.
There she is.
She's on, yeah.
So, all right, where was I? I've lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. But Amy, where was I at? Been a long day already.
You were just talking about the agreement and piggybacking.
Okay, thank you. Everyone has a copy of that agreement, which will allow us to jointly work with the Department of Transportation, utilizing their contractor, if we so agree to do so. And they have also provided us with the estimated cost of doing the work that we had submitted to them. You see the amount, I think it was provided to you along with that agreement, and a little map that was kind of hard to read. It was, you know, black and white, and we really had to look through it in order to completely understand what the Department of Transportation is going to be doing for the city, but I think Amy has prepared a little better map that's got color to it that will better show what is going on, and we'll get to that here in just a moment once we get to the point where we're comfortable in doing that and getting everybody up to the understanding of where we're going and what needs to be done. So essentially, a lot of those moving parts got us to the point to where we have the agreement. We provided the board with the agreement. We've got the DOT to back off just a little bit with their desire to get it to them so that they can execute or let bids by April the 20th, moving that to May the 18th. And therefore, if we do what we need to do, which is the hoops that we have in front of us of a resolution, and Hawk is working on a financing agreement that the LGC requires, and we get the financing arranged through a local financial institution like what we have been working on, and Hawk can catch everybody up to speed here in a moment on where we are with that. And we agree to essentially the amount that we wish to borrow. We can move forward and be prepared to potentially have the board take that action, not Monday, but hold the public hearing Monday, and then take action at least 24 hours after that public hearing is held, because the public hearing is an LGC requirement as well. So I know it's been, a lot of moving parts and a lot of things going on. And Amy, please fill in any gaps that I potentially missed, and we'll ask any board members or any of the committee members what questions that they have, and then hopefully get that color-coded map put up on the screen so that everyone can get a better understanding, because I'm sure there were probably a few questions generated off of the map that was provided, because the DOT is not only going to do some resurfacing work, they're going to do some striping, putting in bulb outs, ADA curbing, all kinds of things. And of course, this being a joint project, a number of the streets indicated there are DOT streets, and there's two separate listings. So, there's a lot of stuff in there for everybody to try and capture and understand. But we believe we are getting it sorted out to the point where we are ready for the board to potentially take action on the components that they need to take action on, which are the actual legal agreements and resolutions and public hearings and all of those kinds of things. So I do want to say, thank you to Amy and to Hawk and the rest of staff that has worked on this so diligently. It's been a very long time coming, and I know there have been certain elements which have caused delays, including weather and projects and utility installation projects and all the above. But we're kind of on the precipice now of making that decision that I think a lot of folks have been anxiously awaiting, which is getting ready to see some work done in Oxford on a lot of the streets in town. And when you really see this map that Amy's going to put up, it really illustrates the impact that this project is going to have around the Oxford area, not only on our streets, but a number of the DOT maintained streets that are in this jurisdiction. So I'll stop for now for a moment and allow Ms. Ratliff to fill in any blanks that I may have missed.
I think you have covered everything very concisely, given the amount of time, effort, and snags we have hit with trying to get this actually to the stage it is at. My computer is moving really slow at the moment, which is one of the reasons I have not thrown up the map yet. Hopefully it will be appearing shortly. Can everybody see the map at this point?
No.
Now I can.
Yeah.
Okay, as I said, everything seems to be moving a little bit.
I can.
give everybody a minute for it to maybe come through on their screens. What we have done is compiled all of the different areas that we have either completed to date. You'll see those in dark green for those of you that see the map. And hopefully the rest of y'all will be following shortly behind. And then we have the blue lines are the proposed DOT streets that are going to be resurfaced. The red lines are the proposed city streets for the city to piggyback the DOT project with resurfacing. The yellow-orange streets that you see, like Raleigh Street, is where we are going to be putting in the arrows or the bike lanes and doing additional pavement marking, but not resurfacing. And we had Hicks Mill on the north side of town in a alternate green, as this is a street that we talked about whether or not it should be included in the project. A portion of it right adjacent to the College Street up to the railroad tracks was proposed to be part of the project, but going all the way back to Goshen is one of the alternates that we are looking at adding. And so we wanted to let everybody kind of take a look at this. Is there anybody that does not have the map up yet?
So, Amy, the red are city streets. The yellow are city streets that are going to have bike lane markings on them. And then what is the difference between the dark green and the light green at Hicks Mill?
The dark green, like over in Meadowbrook Lane, all of that was resurfaced as part of our prior project.
Got it. Thank you.
Light green is an alternate resurfacing if we choose to include it in the current project. And that was in the dollar amount that you saw in the memorandum of understanding. It did include that portion of Hicks Mill.
Thank you.
Amy, is there any way to make the screen just a little bit bigger to include the legend or the key down at the bottom that shows what the colors represent?
I'm working on getting a better view. Let's see. And seeing whether or not I can pull that up. As I said, my computer is not being extremely cooperative at the moment. I'm counting myself a little bit lucky that, well, I'm going to end up, let me put this. I think I need to shift screens because I think I just moved it out of your site, didn't I? It is thinking.
Are the streets and what's planned to be done different than what you've shared with us in the past?
No, ma'am. Hicks Mill is somewhat of an addition. When we looked at the utility work that had been done on it, it was certainly, as many streets, deserving of resurfacing.
Okay, Amy, you're not coming through clearly at all.
Let me see if I turn the video off. If that will help, because my computer seems to be overloaded. All right. Are y'all seeing the map now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Great. Down in the bottom, you can see a little bit of a legend. It is challenging to kind of read with the multiple copies we have made of this. You can sort of see that resurfacing is, city resurfacing is red. You can read pixelated text. The orange, yellow is striping or arrows for bike lanes. The green is the light green is an alternate resurfacing. Blue is NCDOT resurfacing. dark green is City of Oxford completed. And unfortunately, those are not coming in extremely clear at the moment. Now, as someone said, we have been back and forth with DOT, with Withers Ravenel, and with McGill & Associates, trying to add the items such as the bulb outs on Main Street, adding the bike lanes and the sharrows, additional striping, things that were not originally called for that we talked about at our last meeting, you know, adding parallel parking and bike lanes on Spring Street and making sure that as long as these roads were being resurfaced, we have provided them the alternate striping plans for Williamsboro. So we are working, you know, really hard to include a number of different plans, pedestrian walkway, bike plans, downtown master plans, whatever we could pull into this project and include is what we have added, and that's added to the complexity of the project and the number of communications back and forth.
Yes, and we'll provide this to the board just as soon as this meeting is over so that you can actually print it off and see it a little better.
Thank you.
You said Hawk was going to present the financial end.
What was that question again?
Is Hawk now going to present the financial aspect?
He can. I think everybody has. I'll try to tell you kind of where we are at currently, and what the city, if we go forward, would need to do in order to make this happen financially. The city, of course, you can see the price that the DOT has provided. Those are estimated costs, and of course, the Department of Transportation expects full payment of the estimated costs to be provided to them up front. Essentially, when we send them the agreement, they want their money in order to do this. In order to do that, the city of Oxford, if we are to do everything that you see on the map and in the agreement, we would need to borrow about $1.25 million. And of course, you know, we've talked about this for quite some time about the ability of the city to do that, utilizing its PAL bill monies that we receive from the state every year. We've looked at a number of alternatives as far as basically repayment schedules and what those will look like. And to date, the best one that we have and would probably recommend utilizing if the board goes forward with making the choice to enter into this agreement would be for the city to borrow $1.25 million over a 10-year period, meaning that the payments on an annual basis would be just about half or a little bit more than what we bring in every year for PAL bill. And of course, you know as well as I do that the PAL bill fund, that is what it is for, is to basically resurface or work on city streets. And other than the package that we did last year, you know, it had been a while before the city really did significant work on its streets. I did say 10 years, I believe, at that. And the interest rate that is being proposed is 2.14%. And I will be glad to provide the amortization schedule to the board that shows all of the payments as part of the information that Hawk will have for us on Monday if we're going to be entering into a financial agreement with a local financial institution to finance this project. And the rest of the money above the 1.25 to pay for this, we have in our current PAL bill fund, and it will not completely deplete it. We can do what we have been doing and have enough funding in the PAL bill fund to not only pay these repayments, but to continue to do work around town on city sidewalks and fixing potholes and doing other things, and probably some additional projects, not to the scope of this one, but some additional projects within the next 2 to 3 to 4 years once we get this done. And then we'll be assessing again what other priorities that we have, because you know as well as I do, this does not address them all.
Danny, Teresa, John, Pat, any comments, questions at this point?
Just a comment. Alan said that the annual repayments would be approximately 50% of the power bill fund. Is that at the present rate of funding? I mean, in 5 years' time, we could be getting more from that, but the payments would then be much less than 50%. Am I correct in thinking that?
Get less.
What I meant was that the payment, now we receive, an annual payment from the state of North Carolina. And that annual payment called the PAL bill distribution disbursement is done on an annual basis, and it's done on a formula for municipalities based on the number or the mileage of road that you have that the city maintains and your population. It's like a 75-25% formula. And the population number is the largest number in that calculation, and the other 25 is based upon essentially how much gas is sold across the state of North Carolina, and then they disperse that. So typically we receive about 230,000 a year. That's about what we've received over the last few years, and that should continue. It was down just a little bit this current year due to less travel. It'll pick back up, and I think we'll be back around the $225,000 range into the future and going forward. Hopefully it'll continue to increase. But our payments are, the first payment that we would be looking at is $113,000.
Right.
If we were to do this. So, you can kind of do the math. There would be 100,000, maybe 100,000 plus that we would not be using to pay the debt service payment for this project that would remain in our PAL bill fund that we would continue to accrue and utilize for other projects.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. I was just one, perhaps I didn't question it right, was whether that we would get more money from the power bill in the future, as you say, depending on gas usage and everything else within the state of North Carolina. So hopefully it won't decrease, but we might increase it.
Teresa or Pat, Danny?
Yeah, I got the part that's been completed, such as Meadowbrook, and I think it's a couple other little things. Has that been paid already, or is that amount in the 1.4 million? Something it's been done for quite a while. Have we paid for that?
Yes, we paid for the previous project already with accumulated PAL bill funds. The project that we did, what was it, 18 months ago, roughly, Amy?
Correct.
My timing is correct. We paid that contractor, which was ST Wooten, for that project. Yes, sir.
That's been done. And I know I can look on last month's financial report. How much do we have in the power bill fund at this point?
Approximately 300,000.
Yeah, I've got the number, but it's actually sitting in my second office in the mayor's conference room where I'm trying to put the budget together. It's right. I think last I looked, it was like 326,000. Hawk, if you got that number, tell me.
378.
Hawk, you muted.
Yeah, 378.
378.
Yay, John.
I've got it here.
That's right.
With regards to the roads that are currently in this project that's going to be repaved, we've already addressed all of the water and sewer type issues and looked at these lines.
Not totally. No, ma'am. Not totally. We have not. And Amy can speak to specifics regarding, individual projects, be they 2017 AB, 18 AB, water sewer kind of things, and where we are with those. But there are some that remain for us to complete. One of the items that, kind of threw us a bit of a curveball, if you look at the map, and to me, it's a good thing, but it did throw us a curveball because we were not expecting it, is the Department of Transportation included Linden Avenue, or MLK, in their project for this. And if you've driven up and down it, you can see it sure as heck needs work. But we were not anticipating that. And one of the utility projects that we have getting ready to undertake includes doing some work down MLK. And we've had to scramble, and Amy's been in contact with DEQ about changing some things around as far as the projects and the timing and the funding to try to move some things up in order to get that done before the DOT comes and does their work, so that we can get the utility work done, and then they can resurface, and hopefully then we can all drive down MLK and not, have mud slinging up on our car on a hot summer day coming out of those bad spaces that the DOT has. Let's see, I've been here 4 years, and they've addressed them 3 times since I've been here, and they're still in bad shape. So, it is a project that certainly needs to be done, but it was not one that they had on their original list that they included, and it's kind of left us scrambling. So, as you might be able to tell behind the scenes, we've all been a little frayed at the edges trying to really get everything lined up to move this forward.
So with regards to what we know we haven't done and what we foresee we possibly have to do, will we have enough money left over after we borrow this and have enough reserves to take care of some of these issues that may pop up after purchasing and other issues?
Which issues are we talking about? Utility related or road related?
Well, utility type related issues that may have an impact on the resurfacing that we're talking about right now.
Well, the utility and streets are 2 different separate pots of monies.
I understand that, but if we're talking about resurfacing the roads and then the water and sewer up under it is messed up, we have to tear up that road again.
Let me jump in here.
That is what we are seeking to avoid. That is what we are desperately seeking to avoid.
We are working with DOT, for example, on MLK, as Alan mentioned, that was projected in a later project. We are switching it with some streets in an earlier project so that we can go ahead and put the utility in before they get to the resurfacing. Division of Water Infrastructure's words to me were, it's lucky that you always do things differently, because it's not a surprise when you ask to change something. And they were actually, open to this possibility. Most of the times they would not actually allow you to switch utility projects from one to another. So we're working with the Division of Water Infrastructure, our funding agency, and working on installing the sewer line on Main Street. The water's already in, installing water on MLK, trying to go ahead and get these utilities in that we'll be resurfacing on. Now, we're not resurfacing every street that we've done utility work on, but we've tried to target any utility work that would be in the imminent near future needing to be completed. Do we have a crystal ball to say we've got 100% of those? No, but we have tried to tackle all that we're aware of.
And not asking for the crystal ball effect, but just knowing how old our infrastructure is, what we're currently doing, what will be the impact of this project and where we are in taking care of, water and
Well, if you look at, say, Spring Street, we're resurfacing that. We have evaluated the water in the sewer. We determined the water needed to be replaced now, but not the sewer. And so at some point, the sewer will need to be replaced, but we think that will be when it starts to get to the point where the road will need to be resurfaced again. And maybe we'll do this coordination item, projects again, doing utility work in front of the next resurfacing cycle. Does that answer your question?
Well, maybe I should just get to the point. My question is, I live on Williamsboro Street, and we've had our water cut off a time or two, but I've yet to have any real work done down the street. It always stops at the Food Line store. So what happens along the street?
Williamsboro, the 12-inch water line that is actually in front of your road was installed in 1988. And when you look at age of utilities, that is a relatively new water line.
Okay.
So we don't anticipate that we would need to do any work on that water line.
That answers my question.
Okay.
I
And
had a
that
couple
road will-
more I wanted to bring before I got cut off. Roughly how many miles are we paying for, is the city paying for, that will be city streets that we're paying, not DOT, but the city?
We are looking at 4.7 miles roughly.
Is there, I think you said in this 1.4 million, 1.463, that did include if we do Hicks Mill Road.
That's correct. It would include the entire length of Hicks Mill Road. We actually have it broken into 3 sections on our bid estimate if we chose to remove portions of it.
Okay. Is there a possibility, I know Front Street, we come down Front and we turn down Main. Is there a possibility to add anything else to this?
Well, we would have to work with DOT closely. It would probably have to be an alternate item after they put the package out because they have already generated the memorandum of understanding. Now, Front Street is a DOT road, so that's not one that the city would be resurfacing.
Yeah, and they're doing half of it. I was concerned with the part that runs from Maine to MLK. But we would not do that anyway, right?
That is correct. We would
Okay.
leave
That would
that.
be
wow.
the
I want to see it be one of those situations where we would hope that the estimates that they have gone out and gotten are higher than what is actually received as a bid.
Okay.
And if that is the case, then we may seek to slip in another road or two that is closely associated with the work that they're already doing.
Okay.
Is that the kind of thing that you can put on the table early on and to say, to follow up on Danny, you're already on this street. If it looks like it's feasible, can you continue all the way on down the block? Or is that the kind of thing that you have to wait till they're doing it to bring it up?
No, it would be something that we would explore in advance because, they're doing this on estimated cost. And I have no idea. If you read the agreement, it starts talking about, we'll give you money back if, it exceeds the price and you'll pay us a little bit more if it comes in overpriced, that kind of thing. So I am sure that they would probably prefer not to write us a check back if the bid comes in higher, and just do a little bit more work via their contractor if that can be done in close association with the project that they have already defined.
Right, but you said that Front Street was their street, so we wouldn't be doing Front
Let me-
anyway.
Let me jump in. I do apologize. part of Front Street is theirs and part of it is ours. And I just pulled up the map to confirm that because anyway. So it's kind of like Spring and McClanahan and Goshen where it goes city, DOT, city. And this actually is another one that I had slipped my mind. So from Main Street to MLK is actually city owned.
Okay.
Okay.
And I apologize, I didn't remember that off the top of my head.
You got your questions answered, Danny? Okay. Pat, any comments, questions?
No, I'm glad Amy clarified for Teresa with the aging of some of the sewer and water lines. That gave a clearer understanding of what streets are being done and why.
Exactly.
Mayor, any comments?
And I apologize that I've not reviewed the MOU with the detail that I normally do ahead of a meeting. And thank you for asking, but I had mentioned to the manager. And so Alan, if you can speak to this, we had talked about, is there's going to be something in there that addresses that the contractor doesn't get the money till the city and the state sign off on it so that we're assured of that the job is done as we want.
Yep. I have addressed that with the Department of Transportation. They have sent back some proposed language as of this morning. And we're looking at that now, but it does give the city basically the ability to notify the Department of Transportation of any deficiencies that we noticed during the process, and get that to and notify the Department of Transportation so that they'll take care of it with the contractor before the contractor basically gets out of town. So they do have some language.
Right. So that isn't in the link because that's what I wasn't seeing it in here. And I thought, well, maybe I just.
It's not in there. They
So
just
it's
sent
not
it
in
this
there yet,
morning.
but there will be some kind of hold back on final payment. Because if we're going to put all this money up front, we just want to know we're going to get a quality job.
Yep. Well,
Okay.
there's not going to be language in there that says that tries to dictate to the Department of Transportation when they pay, because when we give them the money, they have our money. It's based upon, the quality of the work that is done, and all of this work that is done is to their standards, which is DOT minimum standards. And, we've all seen there are reams and reams and reams of engineering documents detailing DOT standards. And they will be on site for every project, inspecting it as it takes place. We will be following in kind. And if we notice that something is not quite what we expected and anticipated, then we notify the Department of Transportation, and they work out with that contractor what the city's issue is before they get done. And that language wasn't in there before. And they understood that this is kind of a different arrangement, that we're kind of a third party removed from being directly involved, and just giving them money didn't quite suffice it, and they've agreed. So I will be sending out that language to the board along with a revised or amended agreement, and the board will have that information prior to Monday's meeting. You'll either get it today or tomorrow, one of the two, just as soon as Mr. Ung and I can get back together and take a look at the work that he's completed with the LGC financing document that was about yay thick. I prepared the resolution and have sent that to the LGC for their review, making sure that it touches all their buttons before we actually just get it before the board and request the board review it and potentially agree to it. I wanted to make sure that the LGC said, yeah, that's exactly what we need. So that's been sent off to them today as well. So, again, there's a lot of components of this and a lot of moving parts when you're bringing in as many parties and elements to a project like this one. has to it. So we're continuing to do our very best to stay on top of it, and really appreciate, the board sticking with us and having some understanding, because I do know that you're constantly asked out there in the public where all of this is. I know that. We get asked as well. It's going to be a large project with, a lot of moving parts, and one that we all want to be proud of when it is done.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add one comment that kind of piggybacks on that, and it goes to Teresa Gilrea's questions earlier, and Amy's response saying that the state is willing to work with us on, flipping the order of projects. And I could be wrong, but I would also bet, the city is considered a little bit of a poster child with respect to the quantity of utility projects that we're doing. And I know that I'm able to speak about it when I'm talking to others, that we've done a really good job, Amy and the engineering firms and all the work that we've done. And I feel like, their comment, yeah, we do things a little out of order, but we're also doing the right work that needs to be done. And I think that makes them willing to work with us on the other end when we say what's going on, precisely because we're trying to conserve dollars and do it right. So I just want to say thank you, Amy. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, everybody that's worked hard over the years to put us in a position where the state has the faith in the work that we do, that they are comfortable with the request to switch up the order because they know we're going to deliver the product that they intended to fund. So thank you.
Yep, absolutely. We appreciate it. I'm just surprised that none of my hair has decided to turn gray or turn loose in this process, because it's certainly been a lot of fun. But we're getting there.
We're ready now to then proceed to Monday. Is it 6 o'clock?
Ron,
5:30.
Do we need a recommendation?
Ron, I got
Yes.
one question before we go. I can remember some time ago that a citizen off of Broad Street came in with a complaint about, did we ever do something to Broad Street? And not Broad Street, but Alexander Avenue. Yeah. You and Danny may also, and the mayor may remember, Elijah Strader came in to one of our board meetings some time ago, and it just came to my mind. Amy, did we ever do anything on Alexander Avenue?
We
Isn't that,
installed sorry.
it's not on the list to pay?
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
It is a DOT street, and DOT is proposing to pave it, and that will be part of this project. We're also proposing to put sharrows for bike lane, share the lane with bikes on that road as well. But
Well, my question was more about the water and sewer, because Lige was concerned about the piping and water and the sewer on Alexander.
the water was replaced as part of the 2017 water line project.
Thank you. Now that was a year I don't remember. So you all can understand, I don't remember 2017 much.
I don't
Thank
remember.
you, Ron. Thank you, Amy.
All right, at this point, it sounds like we'll entertain a motion. Danny? or
I'd make
Teresa?
that motion.
All right, the motion is that we present it Monday night, public hearing, and then have a vote 24 hours later.
Yes.
Okay, Teresa?
Yes.
And I say yes. John, your thoughts?
No, I agree with you. I agree with everything. I'm glad Alan said that he's going to include more safeguards. He did mention that at the beginning of the meeting. So I was wondering what those safeguards were, but you've just explained it to the mayor. So thank you for that. No other comments. I agree with the motion.
Pat?
Yes.
Okay. Did I miss anybody, Mayor?
Oh, no, this is great. I appreciate the time and the energy. You know, I feel proud. We're doing some good work. We're not
Well,
doing
they did.
everything. If we had more money, we'd do more. but we're doing as much as we can conceive of doing with what we've got. And I thank everybody, and I thank you, Ron, for your leadership with the Public Works Committee and just all the good work.
It would definitely be good for the public to see and for us to see progress actually being put into effect.
That's right.
All right. So we're set for Monday night. Moving on to item number 2, the stormwater issue at Elmwood. Alan, I see you've got some guests with us, so I'll turn it back.
Yes,
over
I
to you.
do. Yes, I do. I have some guests. I'll preface this before we go to our guest. We've been talking a little bit about the situation out at Elmwood Cemetery. We talked a little bit about it during our retreat a month or so ago, and it is an issue out there. I know everybody doesn't visit a cemetery every day, but if you've taken the opportunity to go out there, you can kind of understand the challenge that we have regarding dealing with the stormwater that flows through the center of that cemetery, and the desire of a number of our citizens to take action and deal with it before it gets worse. And it is that initiative that has led the city to engage with Freeze and Nichols at this point in time to come out and take a look at it preliminarily in order to prepare this stormwater line project approach memorandum that was shared with all of the board members about a month or so ago. And they are joining us today to discuss not only that information that they've submitted in the project approach, but their experience and what they have seen and what they may be proposing that we actually do in order to address that situation that we have out there. I'd like to introduce Mr. Charles Archer with Freeze and Nichols. And Charles, I must say, is that a green screen behind you, or is that your actual office there at Freeze and Nichols? Because that looks real comfortable.
It's a green screen.
All right, I thought so. I will allow Charles to introduce who he has with him on his team from Freeze and Nichols. So Charles, if you'll do that, please proceed.
All right, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you discussing the stormwater project at Elmwood Cemetery. Joining me on the call or video conference is Emily Brown, Emily Smith, and Matt Cartwright. They're here for technical support. If you get too technical questions from me, they'll back me up. But we've got a short presentation for you all that will show you kind of what we're seeing and can talk about some of the pathways to propose solutions, if that's okay with you all. Is it okay to share my screen?
Yes, sir. I think we can do that.
All right. Bear with me just a moment. Let me get this thing up. Try that again. All right. Are you all seeing that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Well, again, thank you for the opportunity to join y'all this afternoon. And we had the opportunity to visit the cemetery a few weeks ago and take a look at things. Unfortunately, we were out there on a pretty day when we were there. The drawing that's on the screen now is one that the city shared with us. As you all know, this is an old cemetery. And you know, it's at least 100 years old, if not older. And this yellow line that's on this drawing of is approximately where the storm drainage line is now. You can see how it runs through there. But just wanted to show this to you all for reference. On this drawing, south is at the top and north is at the bottom. And I'm going to show you another drawing here in a minute where it's reversed. This yellow line is, when you look at the original map, it shows a 6-foot walkway. So it appears that the storm drainage pipe that's in the ground today was either put inside that 6-foot walkway or very close to it. And we don't know exactly when it was installed. This is a couple of photos of the cemetery itself. You can see the one on the left, it's a pretty good sized sinkhole. And then you look at the one on the right, you can see the traffic cones kind of marking where the sinkholes are along that line. A good portion of this pipe appears to be clay pipe. It's very old, brittle, and it's obviously collapsing in certain places. So it's a danger not only for people visiting the cemetery to fall and hurt themselves. Also, if these sinkholes continue to grow, it could cause problems for some of the grave sites in the cemetery as well. This is a drawing or aerial photograph of the cemetery. Can you all see my mouse moving around on the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the south end where my mouse is now, running north, and the existing creek here where the storm drainage line runs to. We're fairly certain that there's a head wall behind this house here where the pipe begins. And that's on private property, so we weren't able to get in there and take a look at it from that side. But there's a headstone up here. I believe Hancock was the family name that was on the headstone. It's a pretty good sized tree next to it as well. But this, as I showed on the previous drawing, appears to be the approximate location of that 6-foot walkway that was reserved, some 100 years ago on the layout of the cemetery. We believe that from the beginning point of the pipe, at least to this point, it's probably clay pipe. And you could tell from those pothole photos that it's collapsing at several places. It's just gotten old and brittle and collapsed. There are 2 catch basins on either side of the road here and 2 catch basins on either side of this road. We're not sure if this is clay pipe or concrete pipe. We're fairly certain that this is concrete pipe because where it drains and enters into the creek, you can see the concrete pipe. We can say that we believe the concrete pipe is either stopped up or has collapsed somewhere itself, because the day we were out there visiting, there was no water running out of this pipe, but there was water running from under the pipe. So it's not going through it. So we're not sure what the pipe material is in between these points. It's either going to be clay or the concrete pipe. Obviously, this is a newer section of the cemetery as compared to what's up here. If this was just a typical storm drainage project in a green field, it'd be pretty easy to fix. Replace the pipe, take a backhoe out there and start replacing pipe. But given that there are countless number of graves sites between the headwaters up here to the end, it's a very sensitive project from that perspective in a very tight corridor. Again, we think this is maybe only about 6 feet wide, so you can't just go in there with a traditional backhoe and start replacing pipe. So the approach that we have provided to the city for this first phase is to come in and do an analysis to essentially develop some alternatives for the city to consider, that where we can fix the problem and have the least impact on the grave sites in the cemetery, and also consider cost. So at this point, we've identified 2 basic options. In this first phase, we'll look at that more closely, but the first option is essentially to replace the pipe that's shown here, using a combination of digging it up and replacing it. And again, would have to be appropriately sized equipment going in there to do it, and replace the pipe all the way to the creek. It's possible dependent upon the condition of this concrete pipe and whatever the pipe material is in this section, that it could be lined using a trenchless method where we don't have to disturb above ground. But we don't know yet till we get in there and do a condition assessment. So that's something that we would look at. So first option number one would be replacing the pipe in place with a combination of open trench and possibly trenchless technology to replace or line the pipe to open the water flow back up, and obviously backfill it to eliminate the sinkholes that are there today. And during that assessment, we would also look at alternative pipe materials, something that's, when you do this, you want to do it's going to last for a long time. So it won't be another problem for a long, long time to come. The other alternative that we've identified is rerouting this possibly and coming out from where the pipe begins up to the roads and following the roads down to the creek. We don't know if this will work, number one, because of the grades. If we're on the high end here, and the pipe would have to be pretty deep in these first phases. So we don't know that it's, number one, the grade is even possible, but it gives us at least an alternative to get it out of the cemetery proper, to get it back into the roadways inside the cemetery. If that were the preferred solution, as an example, likely we'd have to do something, since I mentioned these are two catch basins here, to get the water back into this pipe. Or it could be that maybe this pipe is abandoned and we do a reroute here. And this is open and this is repaired and opened up. We don't know, but if we were to abandon this line, the original line, and put in a new line on Penn Avenue here, this is an extension of Penn Avenue, we probably have to do at least a connection here. Otherwise, you're just going to have ponding water because this is a low spot in the street. And on this second road here, closer to the creek, we'd either have to bring a line back, or I think it's most likely we can probably at least salvage and do that last piece to avoid that additional pipe. So that's the two basic concepts: a new route with new pipe to avoid impacting the large number of grave sites, or potentially impacting large number of grave sites, or replace it where it's the route that it's in today, with new pipe material that will last for a long time for the city. Just a little bit of additional background. When we looked at this project, we consulted the North Carolina Cemeteries Commission, and they do not have jurisdiction over your cemetery. They don't regulate publicly owned cemeteries. They regulate private cemeteries. But they referred us to the North Carolina Historic Preservation Office and the Office of North Carolina Office of Archaeology. And they were a big help as well, because they deal, a lot of cemeteries are on the historic register. And in fact, your cemetery was evaluated in 2018 for the historic register. It hasn't been named to it yet, to our knowledge, but at least it's been evaluated. And once it gets on the historic register, that's kind of a game changer for the process too. But one of the things that, once we determine what the preferred alternative is, we would have to come in with what's called ground penetrating radar. And that essentially helps us detect what's under the ground, so that when we're getting near or on top of grave sites, we can tell what's what. This is a photo from a report. We, in the last couple of years, have worked on a cemetery in Fayetteville, North Carolina, that was damaged by one of the hurricanes, and a portion of that cemetery had to be relocated. So we had to use ground penetrating radar there to determine what's underground and where. And this is just a snapshot of a photo out of that report. You can see where the plot is drawn off in red lines, and the flags show where there are anomalies underground, but we've got to be careful with what we're dealing with. And what we would propose as the city proceeds with this project. Obviously, we've got to work closely with you all and having a plan to work with the community, to work with the families that have loved ones in these grave sites, because it's a public relations project as much as anything. As I said earlier, the storm drainage part's easy. Trying to do this in a delicate manner with the least amount of disturbance to the grave sites is going to be the biggest challenge. With that, we'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you all might have.
Just for clarification, are you saying that one of the main things you'll be doing with your study is trying to determine the status of the clay pipe in that first section? And that might help you determine which way you would go?
Yes, sir. We're pretty certain that at least from this point to that point, this is where most of the sinkholes are.
Right.
And there's, I believe there's some in here as well. Pretty sure that it has collapsed in several places. And, clay pipe hasn't been used in decades.
Yeah.
A long, long time. So we would identify the pipe material throughout and then determine the condition of it. And if it's possible that it's still in good, like when we get on the lower end, if it's in good shape, it still may have some life left in it, or it may not. Some of the alternatives we would look at for the city to consider is, what's going to make sense to do this project. You probably don't want to come back in there and do it again for a long, long time. Right. But to look at those alternatives. But part of it would be the condition assessment of the pipe. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Is there in your examining of the sites, if you don't reroute it, is there a possibility some of the graves may have to be relocated, or
they may have to be reinterred?
Reinterred, okay.
Yes, yes.
Now, if you go with the alternative route, just from my looking at it, it looks like that's a possibility that may not happen. Am I looking correct?
Yes, ma'am. It's the biggest challenge here is going to be the grade, because we're going. It's higher here on this lower end, and once we get to this point, it's probably okay. But we're gonna have to do some survey work to see if it actually can get it to drain. Number one. And one thing I should have mentioned too, the distance on the existing pipe is about 620 feet. This alternative route is about 900 feet.
Yeah.
So obviously there'll be more material involved in the alternative route, especially when you consider if you have to have the additional drainage installed on these side roads. But that's part of our analysis. We'll look at the costs, the feasibility, as well as the risk associated with each option for the city to consider. And there may be some other option.
Thank
Bob,
you.
I'd like to add too that we probably would also use the GPR along that yellow route as well, just to make sure that the graves are where the headstones indicate. There could be the situation that they're unmarked graves. So we would do our due diligence to make sure that things are where we think they are.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mayor?
So, one, thank you for doing such a great job explaining how complicated this really is. It makes it easy for us, or easier when people come and ask questions, to explain all of the issues at hand. My knee jerk, of course, is, and when I hear you say we would do it and we wouldn't give you any problems if we were able to find a way to repair the existing line, it wouldn't give the city any problems for many, many years. But at some point we might have problems, and then we're dealing with these issues again. And so instinctively I'm thinking, oh, getting out into the roadway would be much better. But as I understand it, what you're saying is the process of your thorough assessment is to be able to bring back to the board everything that would be involved in doing a renovation, repair of the existing line as compared with rerouting? Because right now you've just done a kind of surface analysis, and what is really required is that in-depth study so that we can have a really solid idea of what we're talking about with respect to finances and issues. Am I understanding that?
Exactly. Yes, ma'am. Great way to
Okay.
describe it.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Alan? Sounds like we're ready to proceed.
No, I really don't have any questions. You know, it's I think everybody understands that, you know, it is something that needs to be addressed because it's not going to get any better. It's going to continue to deteriorate and cause issues. And again, we certainly don't want, you know, an extended period of really, really heavy weather with water rushing through there to cause any further issues of erosion in that corridor down through the cemetery. So, you know, whatever we do, I think we need to move forward with at least understanding fully what we're dealing with. And of course, what we are dealing with includes just how much we're looking at in dealing with solving this problem. I will let the board know that you know, this project, if we pursued it and went forward with it, however it turns out to be, as far as the alternative selected, we do have about $800,000 in our stormwater fund currently. You know, we certainly have no desire to fully deplete all of that with this one single project, as we have other projects identified that are going to require funding out of that fund, including the Cherry Street, Broad Street area project that we also talked about back at our retreat, that we have designed and are prepared to move forward with as part of this resurfacing initiative that we just talked about. So, you know, cost is always a concern, but I think this is a project that I do believe our citizens would expect us to remedy. Especially those that have, you know, relatives that are interred there. And Charles did mention, of course, that, you know, there is some sensitivity required there as far as what the city does and how the city does it, in making sure that the public is not only informed of what is going on, because they will ask questions, believe me, just as soon as they notice either work taking place or surveying or whatever is being done in the cemetery, and we need to have good answers for them, as well as trying to get out in front of it once we make the decision, in getting that information out to the public and letting them know what approach we're going to use and why. So it is, you know, a bit of a public relations issue, and not just a simple open in the middle of a field line replacement project. It's a little bit more complex. So Freese and Nichols does have a lot of experience in working with these types of projects, and I do appreciate their thoroughness in preparing for this meeting today for this Public Works Committee. I don't have any further questions. I think we're at a point, unless other board members have questions, that we're seeking kind of a recommendation from the committee whether or not we want to engage with Freese and Nichols to do the study identified in the project approach memorandum.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Can I ask two questions? One is, this is curiosity, how long would we expect a study like this to take? And two, it's not going to affect my interest in, of course, I don't have a vote, but what kind of money are we talking about to engage up front in just doing this study?
The study, the proposal from Freese and Nichols to do that study that they would complete within 60 days of us providing notice to proceed. is $24,425, and I'm assuming that that fee is still good from a month ago, right, Charles?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, again, Teresa, Danny, do we have a motion?
So you want a motion to present this to the board?
In essence, yeah.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Okay, Teresa? Do we lose Teresa? Or do you agree with moving it on to the board
Was the motion made?
by Danny?
The motion was made to bring it to the full board's consideration at their next meeting.
Yes, bring it before the board at the next meeting.
Okay. So Charles and Emily and Matt, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all again for the
Thank you all.
opportunity, and look forward to working with you. Have a good rest of the afternoon.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Charles. We'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Y'all have a great afternoon.
All right, Amy, you want to bring up the issue you had?
I will touch base on it very briefly. I have another meeting starting at 2:30 and we'll need to jump out of here in about 10 minutes so I can get ready for it, or a little bit sooner. One of the questions that has come up with the submittal of new projects coming into town, for example, the new car lot, the 4.5 acres in front of Walmart that has asked to be annexed and rezoned, they will be connecting to the water line that we just installed as part of the water tank that we built on Industry Drive. And one of the questions that has been asked is, are we going to charge them a main charge for connecting to that line? This would also hold true for any other line that the city has paid to install or been a participant in. The outer loop is another example where we extended it from Revlon back to Salem. Many municipalities actually charge a per foot linear frontage charge for connecting to a line that they did not participate in paying for, or a per lot in the case of residential for the connection. And one of the things that we wanted to run by the board and the committee and see if it needs to go to the board is if we want to start charging those type of fees, and if so, would you like us to do some research on what is common practice at other municipalities and what we would need to do if we wanted to adopt those moving forward? That's real quick in a nutshell, since I have to run pretty soon.
My first reaction is yes, this probably does need to go before the full board. And that information you talked about would be very valuable in making the decision.
I just have a question. I remember when the guy from the Development Finance Institute came to talk to us, and we're obviously financing all of these projects. And so in essence, water customers that sign on today are going to be the ones paying for the projects through their bills, because we're financing it, and we worked out the financing as part of the water bills. So our rate structure, I guess, is what I want to say. So I just want to throw that out. If it's going to be financed for 20 years, it's going to be the users from now for the next 20 years that are going to be paying the bill.
Which is a good point, that the existing residents, in, say, on Gilliam Street won't be, will be paying for a water line that is on US 15 South, serving lots out in that vicinity. And this would be a way to recoup some of those costs and be able to not raise rates as much as we might have otherwise, similar to the reason why we adopted the system development fees. And Commissioner Tovey, you had a question?
Yes, I thought we spoke about this at the UDO meeting, was one of our sessions with the UDO about connecting connection fees for new buildings, like the pod or something else. Didn't we agree that there would be a connection fee?
I was not a participant on those meetings, so I'm not sure.
I
if
think
this-
there were, I mean, the mayor might remember it, or Cheryl Hart might
Cheryl's
remember.
on the line.
Sorry?
Cheryl is on the line.
Cheryl, I'm sure we mentioned it at one of the meetings, the UDO, that we were looking at connection fees that we haven't done in the past. Cheryl, can you refresh my memory?
It was $3,000.
Yes, I think
Oh, you muted yourself again, Cheryl.
the subject did come up, and that was one of those deals where we were gonna rely on engineering
Yeah.
to determine what fees would be assessed.
Thank you. I knew we had mentioned it.
Okay, Amy?
It's a typical fee that's charged in other municipalities. I don't, and this is something obviously I need to go back and visit with the UDO folks and Cheryl, but I think, the city has a means to recoup some of the cost and expense that we have put in to make the utilities available, and we should take advantage of that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So is this different than the facility development fees that we just voted on?
Yes.
And what's the name of this? What would this be called?
This is typically called a main charge, which is the cost of installing the main in the ground in front of their property, or the back if the sewer runs along the back of a property instead of a front. So it's based on their linear footage of, on the actual road, how much road frontage they have. Or in the case of single family residential, they typically will do a per lot charge, because somebody that's on the dead end of a cul-de-sac would have maybe 20 feet of frontage, and somebody that's on the corner of the cul-de-sac might have 250, and that would equalize to just have a per lot charge.
So then if you were gonna put a new line down High Street, would we then start saying, okay, new line owners need to start paying their fair share for the new line because the folks down on Lewis Street aren't using that line, but we are?
Typically, this charge is for new connections to an existing line, not existing line where you're doing rehab or replacement. So the outer loop or US 15 South, those are new water lines, new opportunities for connection. On High Street, those are existing customers and you're replacing with different.
Okay, we're starting to run close to a time that both Amy and Pat have to leave us. But Pat, you had a question?
No, I was just saying I'm about ready to go.
Yeah.
Ron, I
I
don't
didn't want to miss
exactly,
anything.
I think we need to kind of carry this conversation on, because I don't exactly understand
Exactly.
what we're gonna charge. I mean, we're already charging a hookup. We're charging system development fees. I don't know exactly what this is. So let's carry this one on a little bit.
Well, that's why, yeah, I agree. I thought it'd be appropriate for Amy to
Some
look
more
at it and bring it
research.
back to us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're really bringing forward to you today is we would like to develop this item a little further and return back to this committee with what we find and potentially what we would recommend your consideration of.
Sounds good. Amy, if you'd be kind
What-
enough to do that for us.
What utility are we really talking about here?
Water.
Okay.
Well-
Water and sewer.
It would apply to all utilities, but specifically, right now, we have a question about water, and that's my alarm to go to the next meeting.
All right, is there anything else to be presented for this meeting? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, everybody take care and thank you for your input.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.